Hey everyone, this is Chelsey. Welcome back to another design team video. Today I'm bringing you some fun ideas for last minute Easter cards. I knew that for my cards I wanted to use one of the new collections. It's called Daisy Meadows and it's a gorgeous collection. There's some really beautiful colors in it. It has peach, smoothie, cinnamon, peacock, mint, fern, Sundance, canary, almond, mink, and white daisy. Now, as much as I love the pattern paper, I knew I wanted to focus on the Picture My Life cards. And actually, my original idea was to make some quick cards using the Picture My Life cards. However, I couldn't get them in time to make this video, so I decided instead to use the designs that I'm pointing to as inspiration and the digital Cricut collection for all the icons that I needed. So I decided for my cards today, I am only going to use cardstock instead of patterned paper. And that's because March is Cardstock Carnival month. All month long, you can stock up on these great basics, anywhere from 15 to 30% off, depending on the type of bundles that you choose. And you can never have enough of these great basics. I will leave the link for this in the description box below. I also decided for my projects to use a digital Cricut collection because if you go straight to my website, scroll to the bottom, click on that little Cricut symbol, it will take you straight to the Cricut store where you can see all of our different collections. You can click on the one you want, see all the images, and then just add it to your cart. Because I'm already signed into my account, it shows that I have purchased this collection, so there's no risk of accidentally buying two. I'm just going to go back and show you what it looks like with one that I haven't purchased yet. All you have to do is click Add to Cart, and then it will prompt you to just check out like you normally would. And once the purchase has gone through, you can go over to Design Space and see it under image sets that you own, that you've purchased. So super fast and easy, and just a thing when you're trying to work on last minute projects and you don't have what you need. So here is the first card that we're going to be putting together today. There's lots of layers on some of the images, like these flowers. Some of the Easter eggs have a lot of layers, so you can use different colors. This one actually has some tiny little pieces that go around the center of the flower, so I'm just using my tweezers to add the glue and then stick them down. I like using liquid glue for die cuts like this or pieces that you're layering on top of each other, just because it gives you a little bit of time to kind of shift it around, wiggle it around, and try and get it as straight as possible. Sometimes if it dries too fast, you can end up with some lopsided pieces. Here I'm just putting peacock cardstock on the front of my white card base. I got it just a little bit off, so I'm using my scissors to trim off that excess. And then my die cut panel, I'm actually going to attach with some foam tape. I don't like to use too much foam tape or too much dimension, because then when I go to mail it, it costs a lot. But I like to at least have a layer to add a little bit of dimension on my card. Now I'm just going to use that flower as a placeholder so that I can slide all the leaves and little branches and things around it and make sure everything is in the place that I want it to be. So now I have all those pieces glued into place. I'm going to add my flower, but I decided I want just a little bit of dimension, so I'm using the thin foam dots. So there's two thicknesses, it's kind of regular and thin. I really like that because I can add a little bit of lift without adding too much bulk. I'm also going to adhere my sentiment into place on my card front. I decided to use some gold glitter gems on this card to just kind of finish it off. I love glitter gems. They add a perfect amount of sparkle. I also thought the flower needed a little something, so I'm going to grab my clear shimmer brush and just add that all over the top layer of the flower for a little bit of extra shine and sparkle. It's very subtle, so you probably can't see it so great here, but in person, it definitely adds to it. As my final step on this card, I'm using liquid glass to cover the whole sentiment. This will give it a raised and shiny appearance once it's dry. This product does take a little bit longer to dry, so I like to do it at the end of my cards so I can just set them aside let them air dry without sticking my fingers in it. So here's my finished card. I love how it turned out. And now on to our next card. On this mint panel, I decided I wanted to create a cloud background. So I'm using a stencil that I cut on my Cricut using the stencil material that Close to My Heart carries. I'm using mint ink and an inking tool with foam. And I'm just starting on the stencil and then blending off so it has a very soft cloud texture or pattern in the background. And I'm just working my way up the panel. It's a little bit trickier around these letters, but I really like the finished effect. This panel was actually part of a card design that was already in the Cricut collection, and it had words all the way down to the bottom. So I just used the contour feature in Design Space to hide all those other letters and just leave the Happy Easter. I will leave the link for the Design Space file below, so if you want to cut these out too, you can, and all the work has already been done for you. So now I am just assembling my little bunny there. He has 3 different layers, and I'm using my liquid glue again to help me line them all up. He's such a cute bunny. I definitely want to use him again on some other projects. Maybe cut him even larger and use him on a layout or something. Now you can see I'm just sticking all these layers of these eggs together. I love how there's multiple layers so you can use different colors and get some really customized eggs that coordinate with your project. Now I need to add this panel onto a card base, and as I'm looking at it, I decide I definitely want to add some color. So I use a strip of peach cardstock and a strip of peacock cardstock behind those openings. And I'm just adding glue right around the words so that it will stick down nice and flush and not have any gaps around the words and the cardstock. When I cut out this panel, I did save all the little centers for the letters, so I'm just going to stick those in with some glue and then use foam tape to adhere the panel onto my card base. I'm using tape runner to adhere both of the eggs behind the bunny rabbit. And then I'm going to decide if I want to have my grass in front of the bunny or behind the bunny. I decided to adhere that grass just behind the bunny, and I used just 1 bead of glue along the bottom to stick it to the card front. Then I'm going to use some thin foam dots again to attach the bunny to the card, give it just a little bit of lift. And then I had to add some liquid glass just as a finishing touch. I'm adding it to the belly and to the ears. And then because it's hard to get it right up to the edges there, I'm using a pin to help drag the glue right up to the edges so I don't end up overlapping any of the white area. Now we are on to the 3rd card, and this panel of peach cardstock that I have for the background, I embossed with this retired embossing folder. It gives stitched circles, just something subtle for the background that adds texture but doesn't take away from the overall design. There are a lot of layers to the pieces on this card, so I'm just going to start by sticking the egg together because that's kind of my focal point of my card, and then I can tuck in and arrange all the other pieces around it to make sure that I'm getting everything adhered where I want them. Next, I'm going to adhere the layers of the flower together, and this is the same flower that I used on the previous card, but this one I actually cut all 4 layers of the design, so there's a little bit more in the center, which means that I'm going to leave off those little kind of squiggly pieces of cardstock that I used on the other one. They're kind of fiddly and easy to lose when you're cutting, so I just used the 4 layers on this one, and I really like how that turned out. Now I'm just adhering my leaves under there. The flower's not adhered yet. I'm using it to hold the place so that I can get all the little branches and the little leaves in where I want them and make sure everything is stuck down in the right spot. So next up, I'm going to stick this egg into place so that I can put the pieces over top of it. On this flower, I'm actually going to put glue on half of it and then put pop dots on the other half. The egg is quite thick with the 4 layers, so that way the pop dots help the flower to not sag over the edge. The little banner that I have there that says Happy Easter is from a retired stamp set called Bunny Trail, and I stamped it in peacock ink and then just fussy cut it out. I'm using my favorite gold glitter gems again, just to add a little bit of sparkle. This is the fourth and final card, and this one was actually inspired by the Picture My Life card that had the little multicolored eggs all along the bottom of it, and then it had journaling lines. Instead of those journaling lines, I decided to do a line of the eggs at the top and at the bottom, and I'm pretty much just eyeballing the placement of them. I laid them out to begin with, and then I'm using my glue to stick them down, but I'm not measuring or anything. I'm just trying to space them evenly and kind of keep them the same distance from the edge of the cardstock. Even if these eggs aren't 100% perfect and evenly spaced, it won't matter because they're going to become part of the background as we add layers on top. I'm putting this panel into my trimmer because I want to use my bone folder to create some score lines, kind of like a border on each side of these little eggs. So I'm flipping it over to the back so I can deepen up those lines, and then I'm going to measure 1/8 of an inch 2 more times. So I'll end up with 3 lines beside each row of eggs. You can see the indents of the scoring there. It's a very subtle detail, but it does add really nice definition. Now I'm using the Spring Blossoms embossing folder on a piece of peach cardstock just to add some nice subtle texture to the middle. Since we're not using any pattern paper, embossing kind of gives you that effect of a pattern paper. And I'm just lining that up evenly between those score lines. Now I've been working on a separate panel, so I'm just going to adhere that to my card base and make sure that it's all lined up, doesn't need any trimming or anything. And you can see my sentiment is stamped there in the peacock ink onto a piece that was cut with a stitch bracket thin cut. And then the sentiment is from that Retired Bunny Trail set. It's just adhered flat. And now I'm going to work on my little bunny, which is from the Happy Easter Bunny set, stamped in intense black ink so that I can use my alcohol markers. I'm using the Spectrum Noir TriBlend markers, and on the ears and the nose, I'm using the pale pink blend color. And then on the bow, I am using the green turquoise blend. And I like to color starting from the darkest going to the lightest because I find I use less ink that way. So I lay down my darkest color first, in where I want my shadows. I blend that out with the medium color, and then followed by the light color. I love the smooth results that you get from alcohol markers, and these markers being all 3 shades in one marker really helps take away any of the guesswork when you're coloring. Now on the body of the bunny, I am using the brown-gray blend, and then I'm going to go in at the end with the lightest of the brown-gray shades. So the blend is the lighter marker, the shades is the darker marker, and I'm going to use both for this guy. Stamps like this that are drawn with a lot of shading also really help when you're coloring because they show you where the darkest color should go. Of course, you can always make up your own rules of where you want the shadows and where you want the light areas, the highlights. But if you're not sure, images like this that have that extra texture, those extra lines really help to guide you of where to put your darker colors and where to put your highlights. You also want to make sure when you're coloring stamped images that you stamp them in an ink that's friendly with alcohol markers. Not all inks are. A lot of inks will smudge. So I'm using the Close to My Heart Intense Black when I stamp my images to color. And I love this ink because you can use it both with alcohol markers and with watercolor. So you don't have to worry, it will go with whatever medium you end up coloring in. Around the bunny's eye and nose, I'm just using my Colourless blender to soften that gray so it looks just a little bit lighter there. And I'm also using it to fix a little mistake where I went outside of the lines. As a finishing touch, I'm just going to go over the bow with my clear shimmer brush again to add that extra sparkle. I'm going to adhere this guy to the front of my card with some foam tape, add a little bit of liquid glass to his eye for some more shine, and then that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed these projects. Please make sure you check out all the links in my description box below for all the other design team members' videos. And Katie will be up tomorrow with another great project.